If you wake up one day thinking, I wonder what is happening in the world of leadership. What are the trends of people managing other people? Then theoretically you would have 3 ways to figure it out. The first one is research. And the good thing about research is that it's very reliable. You have peer reviews, methodology, the whole shebang. But the problem is that the research can be very slow. The second way is through practitioners in the industry, the people, the decision makers in companies and businesses right now making these leadership decisions. And they're usually also quite reliable, but they have a different problem. A lot of these experts and practitioners, they're not very excited about the idea of sharing what they're doing with other people. So the information about what they do can be hard to access. And the third way is through a social lens or social screening. So basically LinkedIn, Reddit, TikTok, or whatever platform people use these days to complain about their work. Because what the workforce is unhappy about is usually either a derivative from a leadership trend or a signal of a certain leadership trend. And now the fantastic magic is happening when all of those 3 lenses are spotting the same thing. And today I found not 1, but 5 of these trends that are relatively backed up by research, that practitioners are talking about, and people cannot for the life of them shut up on social media. I have the notes with me. And by the way, I had a horrible day today. I had a very tough day at work. It's 8:20 p.m. and yeah, I'm quite unhappy. But also the weather is so nice that I decided that it would be a pity to waste such a nice day with being upset. So I decided that I will postpone it. I will postpone me being upset to any other day when the weather is worse than today. Okay, let's go. So the first trend is a transition from control to trust. We're basically moving from managers who tell you what to do, how to do it, and checking it all the time, more towards managers who are giving you a certain level of autonomy and kind of enable you. If you look at this trend from a research point of view, I would say there are even 2 directions. First, we have some research regarding what high-performing teams' attributes are, what helps a high-performing team succeed. And on the other hand, there is a lot of research about what was happening in the COVID, in the pandemic, and how it influences their management, basically. And here's what we know. During COVID and after COVID, a lot of managers operated in situation of uncertainty, which made them more flexible and more agile. And this is also reflecting in their working styles. And also that psychological safety is good for team performance. Plus, there was the meta-analysis that shows that the top-down commands type of management does not show good results in a very complex environment, which a lot of modern businesses are. Also, management education is changing. So what we see is that there is an increased value on the resilience, adaptability, collaboration, entrepreneurial mindsets, those things that sometimes not doing that well with the top-down type of commands. And to thrive in companies, it requires this trust and autonomy that you give to your teams. Through the practitioners, we see what is called freedom and responsibility. So basically, a lot of big companies, they're trying to distribute the decision-making power, kind of spread it. So instead of creating more and more managerial layers, they actually try to make it a little bit more flat and empower people to innovate themselves, to give them a little bit more freedom and flexibility to create. So finally, if you open Reddit, you will see there things like coffee badging, I think it's called, when you just go to the office to be seen, or task masking, when you pretend that you're doing something, but in parallel you basically disassociate. And you can ask me, hold on, how is it connected with companies giving their people more trust and autonomy? And I will tell you that this is a signal that people are having less tolerance towards more micromanaging style of working, because usually things like task masking is the response to your manager being so annoying about checking everything, so you have to pretend that you work. And if you would be given a task, you would be empowered to do it, and you would be, let's say, left alone, you won't even need to do things like that. So those are the indicators that indeed this is what workforce is also waiting and anticipating from their management. And the takeaway here is, if you're managing through control and only control, there is a high chance that you're managing the reality that no longer exists. And the sub-trend under this one is that manager is now more of a coach than a boss in a classical sense. Previous video that I made was about one-to-ones, and I spoke about this a little bit more in detail, but basically, because of this shift in leadership, there is more requests on managers who not only know how to tell you what to do and ask you how you've done it, but people who can coach and who can help and empower you and approach management more through a lens of how can I help you succeed, instead of you come here, I tell you what to do, and I will ask you afterwards how you've done it. So we kind of already know that managers who are doing coaching help their people succeed better, but there is also one research that shows that companies who are investing in teaching their management things like coaching perform better post-crisis. And practitioners speak about that as well. You can barely find a company, a big proper corporate right now, who would have a leadership program that would not have elements of coaching in it. Everyone embeds it because the teaching how to do leadership is not only about performance right now. And if you will look around, you will see like working people, maybe 25-year-old-ish, and if you would ask them, many of them actually don't want to become managers right now. And it's also a signal because they witness this old school, more controlling type of management, and they're like, no, I'm not vibing with that. Why would I choose this as a career? So it's also a signal that there is a request from the workforce on these new types of management. So the second trend in leadership is AI. AI, I know, but it's not about AI replacing managers and all of these dystopian pictures of robots surprising. It's rather AI changing how the leadership jobs will look like. So there is a lot of research that shows that AI will do change the decision making for management and how these decisions are made and how the work will look like. But to be honest, it still feels pretty abstract. But the more I kind of dive into this topic, the more I think that we're kind of moving towards having co-leaders, like AI assistants who are helping managers in their regular work with the data-driven decision-making and all that stuff. And what it means that some of the managerial skills will become obsolete, and some of the new skills of working and collaborating with the different AI tools leaders will need to learn and will need to acquire. And even more than that, if your teams are working with AI, and there will be a lot of AI-driven innovation in all different the areas of business, you as manager also need to know how to operate with that to enable your team to innovate successfully. So in business, we're seeing two directions. On one hand, we're seeing the chief AI officers and people who are responsible not only for the integration of and usage of AI, but also for the governance of AI. And on the other hand, we see the starts of emerging things like the AI playbooks for managers. So basically how to go around it, how to use it for this to be not only efficient, but kind of you need to know and learn when to trust AI and when you shouldn't trust AI. And if you go anywhere in social media, you will see the explosion of content about how to use ChatGPT and other AI agents, how to write agents, how to prompt, all of that. So the more we live with that, the more it will be more and more embedded, and it will be an expected skill set from managers. So trend number 3 is an increased importance of well-being and emotional literacy, emotional fluency in leadership. So here's the thing. COVID shifted leadership research more towards the topics that I think they were explored in the more traditional or medical type of research, but in leadership research, not that much. Well-being, how people process trauma, how people process grief, how burnouts work, and all of that. That's, I cannot say the word taboo, but definitely in business context, they before pandemic they were not that in the focus. And also I think we're kind of moving through, first we did not acknowledge burnout at all. Then we learned that, okay, burnout exists, but it's mostly a failure of an employee. And now we're shifting, or will be shifting, towards the perception, okay, maybe burnout sometimes is a failure not of the employee, but actually the leadership who created the toxic culture and the atmosphere where the burnouts, that is actually prone to burnouts. But even apart from that, there are peer-reviewed studies that more emotionally intelligent leaders actually reduce the likelihood of the burnout in their teams. And burnout is not just not a very nice thing to go through, it's also very, very expensive for the company. So keep that in mind. Now, if we look at the companies, at our practitioners, you can, I think, barely find a big corporates that would not have any type of mental health supports included in their benefits package. They have on-demand therapy, they have the subscriptions, they have mental health days off or something like that. And there is another problem is that some companies, they say that they help with mental health, but in reality they do some check boxes that are kind of artificial, but they don't really help. But at least it shows that there is an expectation, and the companies acknowledge that there is an expectations of companies doing something about it. And finally, you will see that much more people in social media are talking now about. They're openly talking about their burnouts, their traumas, the toxic environments at work. And in parallel with that, you also see the trends like quiet quitting and all of other lovely responses of people in the workforce who basically often don't have a lot of leverage to respond to toxic cultures and things like that. So they just do what they can. And this is also a signal response that there is a demand for that in the workforce. And my takeaway for you is you don't have to be your team's therapist. No. But if you don't understand the emotional landscape that human beings are operating in and that around you, you are not doing your job well enough as a manager. So trend number 4 is employees are driving the redesign of the culture. And with full honesty, this is the one that I think the least backed by a more traditional research. I found some of the things somewhere in 2024 that there is, in some countries, there is a rise of the growth of employees movements and kind of an employees activism. But here I want to start with social first, because have you seen layoff TikToks or like the resignation letter going viral or like something like that? If you have seen any of those, you know that these scandals, when companies are not doing something well, can go super viral very, very quickly. And this is the power of it. And this is where it gets impactful, because companies see that and they see how many people, watch online how they did something embarrassing. I don't know, what was the last one? The AI layoffs? They asked AI to do the layoffs. Doesn't matter. So the thing is, it's a very, very social movement, and the social media is leveraged there to gain the popularity for it. So this is the leverage in talking to the companies. And through that, it's actually, I don't think it has ever been like that. Okay, maybe in the countries where unions work well, unions are capable of doing something like that, but I think it's a different category. I don't think we've ever been in the era where employees, people not in a position of power, could use the social media and the power of public opinion to influence the companies that did them wrong. And big companies that are capable of reflecting on what is happening in the world, they will think twice before doing something like that. And this is also a way that I think it motivates companies to keep employees a bit more included on the earlier stages or in some parts of the decision making, for them not to be on the viral TikTok trends that, some fired employees roasting their company. So I think this is a very, very interesting macro trend of employees influencing what the companies are doing through a very unusual leverage in a very different manner. So trend number 5 is a growing importance of things like purpose, shareholder accountability, ESG, environment, social governance, or also in some companies they use CSR, corporate social responsibility, things like that. And there is some research, actually, I found a few bits of research that didn't convince me that much. So, okay, there are some companies with CSR investments. They showed a stronger resilience in stock markets during the early pandemic ways. Okay, it's nice, but maybe not that impactful. Okay, there is some that shows that there is a strong ESG orientation in a companies. These companies have a better talent retention, which is nice. But I think the point is not that. The point is, first of all, if you will look at a lot of big companies, you will see that it's all present there. Right now in many US companies, it's kind of, yeah, some companies are a little bit on the fence, some removed some of the initiatives, some just made them a bit more quiet, and but they still keep it. But the reality is, compared to maybe 10 years ago, the number of companies who have this type of rhetoric, this type of conversations, this type of governance and policies and focuses is uncomparable. Much more companies are doing this right now. And you can also hear this from the bottom up, from people. So a lot of people don't want to work for companies that stand for something that they don't support, because they can not only vote with the dollar or euro or any money currency of your choice, but people can also vote through, this is a company I want to work for or don't want to work for. But with full honesty, I think that the trend is even bigger than that. For a long time, companies really wanted to be good for everyone, right? And if they are doing the marketing campaigns and they decide how to strategically position their brands, they are having this, okay, we want a very big target audience, so that's why we want to be good for this and look good for this. And for these people who prefer this particular thing, we want to look like that. So I don't know if it's an expression in English, but in Russian we say to sit on two chairs at the same time, if that makes sense. So I have a feeling that the era of that is slowly moving away, especially for the companies who are in B2C, so in the companies that are serving consumers directly. Because first of all, people read through BS and they see if company actually stands for what they talk about or not. But it also has implications on employment and on how people manage, because like your company needs to know what they stand for. They need to be clear and crisp about this message, and this is how you find people who actually resonate and share the core with you. The same with managers. You need to know what you stand for, because people value authenticity more, and you as a manager can give them more through your authenticity, but also it is on you as a part of leadership to translate the values of the company, the core, what the company stands for. So if you're a manager and you think, oh, I'm just going to the company, I just do what I'm told to do, I tell everyone what to do and then I leave, I think the era of that type of approaches in management is kind of going away, because for good or for bad, you are under many eyes, and not only eyes of your team, but also public, and especially if your company is big and popular. So it's on you as a leader to be able to translate the company's purpose and translate the social responsibility and the corporate responsibility into actual actions with your team, and now it's a part of your job. And on this lovely thread of public scrutiny, I leave you be. I will finish my tea that is actually long cold at that point. And by the way, go to the comment section and write me something, because this is a very nice thing to do. And I will see you in my next video.